Hi YouTube, this is Evie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I will be talking about a very important but often overlooked subject, aftercare for DOMs and aftercare for tops. Now, in my last video, I talked about sub drop and top drop and everything like that, but when I was talking about top drop, I mostly focused on the emotional aspects of top drop, which is also sometimes called top guilt or dom guilt, something along those lines. All kinds of drop, be that top drop or sub drop, have a potential physical component and a potential emotional component. What kind of drop is actually experienced depends on the person, depends on the scene, how the scene went, just a whole number of factors. It really is quite variable, so you should be able to respond appropriately no matter what kind of aftercare is actually needed, depending on the kind of drop that is actually being experienced. Now, very oftentimes, especially when you're looking at things like Wikipedia and just very general basic information pages about BDSM, the definition of aftercare is very strictly the dominant or the top in the scene providing aftercare to the submissive. Nobody really talks about DOMs needing aftercare, but it is very, very much a thing, and it is something that everybody should have in their toolkit when they are playing, regardless if they're in a long-time BDSM relationship or if they're just interested in pickup play. Now, when it comes to the physical side of top drop or dom drop, a lot of times it isn't very immediate. With things like sub drop, it's generally things like needing food or water right away, needing to be warm, needing to be cuddled, needing to, have lotion or massage or some kind if they've gone through a spanking or a caning or something like that. Generally, it's about taking care of the very immediate physical needs. With top drop, there is a lot of physical connection that can be needed, like in the sense of cuddles or a massage or something like that, but it can also be something that happens over time. Any kind of sub drop or top drop can occur at a later time. It doesn't necessarily something that happens immediately. So a lot of times it actually happens with DOMs or tops because they are exerting so much energy during the scene. They will actually experience a lot of fatigue. They'll feel down emotionally, but it won't be something that necessarily happens right after the scene. It'll be a day or a couple of days later. But regardless of if it happens right after the scene or 2 or 3 days later, aftercare can help prevent the worst of top drop or the worst of sub drop. There is, of course, as I talked about before, a very emotional aspect to it. And I've mostly focused on the emotional aspects of top drop because to me it's something that I've had the most experience with, and it's something that my partners have experienced more in comparison to the physical side of top drop or dom drop. But what kind of aftercare does a dom or a top actually need? Well, aside from a lot of the very immediate physical things that I talked about that submissive sometimes needs, a lot of times their wants and desires are very similar. Again, it'll depend on the individual person and what your relationship likes. A lot of DOMs or tops need some physical time away to kind of process their emotions about what happened during the scene, and then they can come back for aftercare. Sometimes they do want a lot of immediate physical affection. Before you start a scene, of course, always negotiate and figure out what people need for aftercare, and especially if you're new in the scene, if you approach a dom and you want to do a scene with them, if you ask them what they like for aftercare and if they need anything, that is going to leave a very good first impression. This could be anything like taking a shower together, a massage, cuddles, hugging, going out and getting something to eat together, making sure that you do, in fact, have a high enough blood sugar to be able to function for the rest of the day, even if you don't necessarily go out to eat, making sure that you are hydrated. You could shower together, you could sleep together, and by sleep, I mean literally sleep. Of course, sex is something that a lot of people do for aftercare as well, so depending on your relationship, that might be on the table as well, but literally just taking a nap can be extremely helpful and help prevent that fatigue, especially if somebody needs to drive or travel later. Just generally do something that's very calming and relaxing, something that can help lower that emotional high that's being experienced and help you just feel relaxed overall is very helpful. And again, this is something that the sub can use for aftercare, and it's also something that can be very helpful for the dom as well. So physical aftercare tends to be very complementary. If you are in a situation where the top and the bottom, or the sub and the dom, have very different aftercare needs, make sure you talk about that and arrange for that ahead of time. If it turns out that the submissive really does not want to be touched immediately after a scene and needs space to themselves, you can always have it so that way you arrange for a partner, a friend, somebody else to provide physical aftercare either for you or for your submissive or bottom if that's something that you need. Now, with the emotional side of things, it can be a bit more difficult because it can take a while both for you or the top to process exactly what's going on and exactly what they're experiencing emotionally. So in this case, if you don't necessarily know what the top or the dom is feeling, always make sure, even if you think it's a really great scene, that you just reassure them and tell them that it was a really great scene, that you had fun, that you like them. If you want to play again with them, just generally make sure that you communicate with that person that this was a really good scene. I don't hate you. I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think you're evil. Anything like that. A lot of the emotional side of top drop or dom drop has to do with feelings around guilt, because a lot of it is very subversive and very against the way that we are expected to treat people in society. And a lot of times people will internalize that and go, am I like really a bad person? Am I like, do they really hate me? Like, was that really okay with them? And it can be hard, especially, if you're newer to the scene, you're newer dom, to really be okay with that, and having a submissive there or a bottom there, anybody there to really reassure you that yes, this is okay, yes, this was enjoyable, no, you are not a bad person, is so super, super helpful. Now, because of the fact that dom drop or top drop oftentimes occurs in a fatigue state several days after a scene actually happens, there should be some things in place ahead of time, if possible, to make sure that the fatigue is mitigated. Again, making sure that you're hydrated, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure that you're not setting yourself up for a scene where you're going to have a 20-minute scene and then need to drive for 2 hours immediately afterwards. Very, very helpful. Make sure, if you can, to arrange tasks to be done for you. This is very good, especially if you happen to be in a situation where you are a dominant and you're living with several submissives or one dedicated service submissive who can help take some tasks off of your shoulders. That way you're not causing yourself to go through more physical exertion if you know that you're prone to top drop. And especially if you're new to BDSM, I would say overestimate your needs for aftercare. If it turns out that all you need is a hug, that's great, but in case you are one of those people who does need extended aftercare, make sure you have things for that in place, even if it turns out that you don't need it. Something else that's really good for both parties is to check in several days afterward. If you're in a situation where this isn't somebody that you play with a lot, make sure you get their phone number, their FetLife, some way to contact them, so that way you can check in and communicate with them a day after a scene, a couple days, a week, whatever it is, to, one, re-communicate that everything is okay emotionally, and if everything is not okay emotionally, to talk about that. Talk about what went wrong during the scene, talk about what went right during the scene, and especially after you have gone through all of this crazy aftercare stuff I've been talking about, figure out if that aftercare actually worked for you. If it turns out that showering together with somebody immediately after the scene kind of gives you like weird feelings, talk about that. Yeah, it can seem nice in somebody's head, but sometimes showering together isn't really a great way to calm down. Or if it turns out that you really, really need a 4-hour nap afterward, make sure you talk about that as well if you didn't end up getting that nap. Really, just take things cautiously, take things slowly, communicate, overestimate your needs for aftercare, and that is really all the advice I can give you. I will leave links down below to some great resources I found while I was researching this particular topic. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave that in the comments down below as well. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up so I know. As always, you can leave any suggestions for videos in the comments down below as well. If you like this channel and you want to support it, please consider donating to my Patreon. Links down in the description for all of my social media. And as always, until I see you next time, hope you have a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week. Bye-bye.